Hello, this is Keith Owen. Welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to be expanding our knowledge on the COUNTIFS function. And this time we're going to create a scenario where we have multiple criteria to be able to find out certain counts within our data set. Now, this data set was created using ChatGPT. All I did was ask it to create me a data set with certain number of columns and rows regarding HR department salary type information. And I asked it to create it in a CSV format, a comma separated value format, so I can easily copy it into Excel and then perform data and text to columns options here. So in other words, it will separate the values into separate columns. So anyways, what we're going to be learning today is a lot of different things from, as you can see, a COUNTIFS function with multiple conditions, either as a static situation or a dynamic situation. We're going to learn something about data validation. Even though I might have talked about this in previous videos, I always like to add what I'm doing in each video because if you're coming to my channel for the first time or one of my videos for the first time, you'll learn everything all at once instead of jumping on to other videos. So we're also going to be learning about creating a scenario where this information, how you could apply this into the real world. So we're going to be creating a separate data summary so we could use this to create a graph, which is over here. We're going to be creating this graph. And then we're going to be learning also about grouping and ungrouping columns. So if you look up here, I already have a set of columns that are grouped together. And if I press that, it expands it and everything. So we'll go through this in a second. So I'll collapse it by pressing the minus key. So let's first off, let's go back to the data set and let's learn something about COUNTIFS. So in order for these formulas to work, I need to set up a data validation list, at least for the dynamic portion of it. So to set up a data validation list, what you do is select a cell where you want the list to live, basically. And in this case, I want to get to have the user to be able to select the different genders in our data set. So what we're going to be doing is selecting a cell. Shortcut key is Alt A for data. And then over here to the right, you'll see V. So this is for the validation list. So let's go back to here, data validation list. And then what you want to do is in this area, you want to select the list. And then for the source, where is the source of your list going to be living? So in this case, it's in all through my J column. So let's collapse this and let's move this over here. And let's go here. So what I want to do is I want to populate this list over here with the unique values of the gender in my data set. So I would select this entire column. And what is unique about this is I'm using Microsoft Excel 365. And in this version, it allows me to select a list and it will automatically create a list based on the unique values in my range. Instead of selecting every single value in here, it selects all my unique values in here. So that's what that is doing. So let's cross X out of here with cancel. And I'm going to do the same thing for other areas over here, which we'll get to again. But in this case here, for experience, I'm not selecting any value or get a unique experience levels here. I just want the user to come in here and type a number of their choice. So let's first go over to static here, which is displayed right here and also in the formula bar. So let's go through this one by one. So the COUNTIF function allows us to count values based upon certain conditions. Now, the first argument in the COUNTIF function is going to be your criteria range for the first condition, because in this case, I'm using multiple conditions. So what I want to do is I want to count the values where the gender is equal to a certain value. In this case, this is static, meaning I'm typing it in, hard coding this in as the value male. So it's going to go through this range that I select here. It's going to look for all the males. Once it finds all the males, it produces a count of how many records are of male gender. Once it finds that, it's going to go to the second condition, where I'm going to have the third argument as the criteria range 2. I also want to produce a count based upon the experience, okay, which is over here, and I wanted the experience to be anything less than 10. So since COUNTIF is automatically an AND condition to produce a value, meaning that both these conditions must equal to a true in order for count to count the values in here. So once it finds all the males and all the experience less than 10, it produces a count. And in this case, it produces 12. So it went through here. Okay, so how we could figure this out is to validate it is let's select any cell within our data range. Let's press Control-Shift-L to turn on the filters for it. And let's do this manually. So what we want to do in this case, since I hard-coded it as male, let's go to the gender count. Let's select unselect all, and let's just select all the males. Press OK. So what it does, it filter this data set, anything with a male in the gender. Let's also, because I'm using multiple conditions, I want to select anything less than 10. So deselect, select all, anything less than 10. So I have to manually select every single one of them less than 10. Okay, and click OK. Now it produces this set. So again, it looks for all the males and any experience less than 10. As you can see, all these numbers are less than 10. Now let's select one, the first record, Control-Shift down arrow, and select all these records that it turned back. Let's go back down to the status bar, and as you can see, the status says count 12. That's what it returned in this formula. So now let's get rid of the filters. We can individually go back to the filter icon here and clear the experience, or you could do is get rid of these filter options up here by pressing Control-Shift-L to get rid of everything. So the dynamic portion is it's similar to the static, other than the fact that it's looking to the values in this cell and this cell. So this formula will get updated if I change the values in here. So let's select male, and let's select something like 15. Press enter. As you can see, this value then returns 20. So what this COUNTIF function is doing, again, for the second argument in here, it's looking for the criteria, and that criteria resides in cell D5. Same thing with the second argument. The criteria value, criteria 2, lives in cell D6. Okay? And let's look at this over here. If we want it to be less than something, we have to put the less than symbol in double quotes and concatenate that with the value that we're looking for. And we do that through the ampersand symbol. So that's how that works. Okay, let's press enter. Oh, let's Control Z out of that. Okay, now let's go over to the right here. Now we want to, how can we use this data set to produce a graph that tells us something meaningful about the data in there? And we could do that by creating this graph over here, which is this one, performance by department. Now I'm just arbitrarily looking at this data set, and I want to see these numbers in a graph, and let's see what the performance is by department, looking for any employee that is active and also has a status of or performance of excellent. So that's over here. Performance, these are the values here, performance of excellent. Okay, but now let's go over back over here. And we want to get a count based upon these values here. So let's go over here. Let's get a unique list to display of all the different departments in our data set, which is over here. So what we do over here, let's look over here. We're using the sort and unique function. This is an Excel 365. And let's first dissect the unique. I could rebuild this by doing this step by step. So let's do this by unique. Tab into that. The first argument is the array. So where do we want to get the unique values? Unique values for the different departments resides over here in this column. So I select the first value, Control Shift down arrow, selects everything in our data set. Let's Control Backspace to bring us back over here. And so that's that. Now the second argument is this is not required, the second argument, so I'm going to omit it. And also the third argument is also not required in this case. So I'm going to backspace out of that. Let's reset that. And now press enter. Now you can see it gets a list of all the departments that are unique in this column, but it's not sorted. Okay, so let's sort this in alphabetical order so we can surround this unique function with the sort function. And the array, which is what's returned by the unique function. Let's go over here. The sort index in this particular case means that if I had multiple columns to sort by, I would select which column I want to sort by. But since we only have one column that's returned in this array right here, I'm going to omit that by pressing column. It brings us to the next argument. And in this case, we want to sort by ascending order. So we select one or double click on that. It produces a one. The last argument in this case is option. I'm not going to use it. Go over here, press enter. Now it sorts this list in alphabetical order. Okay. Now we got the unique values for the departments. Now let's get a count of how many the number of employees fall within these arguments here. So we're going to use the COUNTIFS function. So let's go up here to the formula bar. Let's look at this. Okay, the first argument is the criteria range 1. So the criteria range 1 is, first of all, we want to look for employees that have status, okay, of active in this case. We also want to look for the performance of excellence. So let's look at this formally again here. The criteria range is D11 through D110. So again, we're going to the D column. We want to look for the departments. The value that we're looking for in this particular case resides in, let's see, let's go over here. Criteria 1 is P11, just a second. Okay, it resides over here in P11. So we're going to look through all the departments and look for the value that resides in P11, which in this case is finance. Now we're making this relative because we're going to be copying this formula down. So as this formula moves down, it's always going to look for the next value in the next row. We're always going to stay in column P, but the row is going to change. So that's number one. Number two, the next criteria range is we're going to be looking for what's in column L. So column L in this case is we're looking for the active status. Okay, so active status. So we're going to select everything in this column, and we want to make sure it equals active, because this is what's set in this value over here. And in order to do this, as we copy this formula down, we don't want this to change. So this is why this argument is set to absolute. The column and the row will not change because we always want to look for the value in this cell. So the third argument in this case is now we want to look for the performance. So where does the values for performance lie? It lies in column G over here. And again, as we copy this formula down, it's going to be absolute. So that's why this range is set to absolute, both for the row and column. And the value for what we're looking for in this range here, the third argument, resides in cell Q8. And again, since we're going to copy this formula down, we always want to look for the value that resides in Q8. So this is why this is absolute, both for the row and column. So that's what this COUNTIF function is doing. So as you can see, the only thing that changes in this formula is the second argument in the COUNTIF function, which is P2. It goes from P12 to 13, 14, 15, because as we go from row to row, we want to look for the count for the marketing department. Here we want to look for the count for the IT department, so forth. These were set as data validation lists, like I explained before, how we set that up. So I'm looking for the unique values in the status column over here. And in this is also a data validation list. Look for the unique values for the performance. Okay. So now let's see, why would we want to know the performance of the right department? Well, let's go up here. Up here, you could see that there's something different about this. I have these next columns in a group. So if I press the plus sign, it expands the hidden columns that I grouped. So how do we group a column? Well, let's go over here. Okay, let's just scroll over here for a second. If I do not select a column like this, okay, I'm going to show you what happens if you do this. If I press Shift Alt right arrow, It brings up the grouping dialog box. What do I want to group? I want to group by column. So I select that, click OK. Now, since I didn't select the column, what it does is just, in that particular case, it groups just a single column. To get rid of this grouping, you want to select Shift Alt left arrow. What do I want to ungroup? A column. Click OK. If I want to select, let's say if I want to go the other route of selecting the columns, what's going to happen is it's going to group these three columns here. By doing a shortcut key, Shift Alt right arrow, it groups it. Shift Alt left arrow, it ungroups it. To do the same thing by using a menu, you want to go up to the data, and over here towards the right, see this outline. Select the drop down, and you have the grouping and ungrouping here. So that's how that works. To do it without if you want to expand or collapse a grouping, but keep the grouping, you would want to either, there's two ways. There's a minus sign and a plus sign that resides over here. If you select two, let's go over here. Okay. It expands it. Let's go over here. I don't know why all of a sudden this is, oh, here we go. Plus sign, sorry for the confusion. But anyways, pressing the plus and minus will expand or collapse it. Over here to the right, it has a 1 and a 2. If you press the 1, it collapses it. If you press the 2, it expands the group. So now let's go over here. Why do we want to get the performance by department? I give you certain scenarios here. I'm just going to read them off, and it'll give you an idea why we want to produce a graph on this. One, it identifies high-performing departments. So what this does is this chart will highlight which departments have the highest number of top-performing employees. Now, this could indicate where the strongest teams are and which departments are excelling in their roles. Another reason could be employee engagement. So we could look at the active and engaged employees. By focusing on active employees with excellent performance, the chart will show where employee engagement and satisfaction might be the highest. So the high numbers in certain departments could suggest effective management, positive work environment. Another reason, resource allocation. So if certain departments have significantly more higher performers, your manager might consider reallocating resources or providing additional support to other departments that balance performance across your organization. And another reason is for training and development. So departments with fewer high-performing employees might benefit from targeted training and development programs. Now, this could help improve overall performance and bring other departments up to the same level. So let's collapse this grouping here. Let's go over here. Now let's create a graph similar to this based upon this summary data that we created by using a COUNTIFS function. So let's go ahead and select our data from the summary data. You want to select the headers and the data itself. If we go up to Insert, over here to the chart areas, now we want to select the column chart to the column chart, and it produces this information. So what this does is, as you can see, it selects the x-axis as your department labels and the count over here on the y-axis here. So let's figure out now. Let's go over here. Let's produce the same visual effect as this. So by here, we have a dynamic type So what we could do by creating a dynamic title, let's go up to the form. Once we create and select the title, let's go up to the formula bar, press equal, and let's select this cell, press enter. As you can see now, this is a dynamic title because now we're setting a value to this equal to whatever value resides in this cell over here. So as I change the value in this cell, so will the chart type. So I'm going to put something else in this cell. I'm just going to type in gibberish. As you can see, it changes this. So I'm going to press Control Z to get back. Now let's bold this. Let's increase the font size. It looks about the same size as this. Okay. Now let's put some data labels on here and let's change the gap width on here. So the gap width here, I'll explain that. If you select the data series, actually let's select all of them. Pressing once, it selects all of them. Let's Control 1. It brings up your format data series over here. The gap width, watch what happens to the gap width as I increase it. Let's go increase it to 300%. As you can see, as I increase the gap width, it decreases the width of the bars, but increases the gap between each bar. If I go to a lower value, let's arbitrarily select 50%. As you can see, what happens is, as you decrease the gap width, the space between the columns decreases, but the width of the bar itself increases. So that's how that works. So let's just arbitrarily, let's go for 75%. And let's get this visual effect like it gives this shadow line here. So as I select this, let's go over here to these options here. Let's look at the effects. So let's go to shadow and let's go to a preset. And it looks like I have a shadow. Let's see, it could be this one. Let's look at that. And it looks like it could be the same as this shadow. So now let's look at this. We want to add some data labels. The data labels will select the values of whatever is in the y-axis. So as we have this data series selected, right click, add data labels, which is one way to do this. As you can see, it put the data labels on top of it. So as you can see, now there's no border. Let's go up to Format, Shape Outline, No Outline, and it gets rid of the border on it. And it looks like that is formatted the same way. I know this is a long tutorial. Hopefully you learned a lot from this tutorial on many different functions of creating a counted function, FS function with multiple condition. We have data validation lists. We have a static and a dynamic version of the COUNTFS function. You learned how to group or create a summary table. And from that summary table, we can create a graph on that. You also learned something about grouping and ungrouping. Again, I thank you for stopping by today and spending your time here to learn this, many different areas of Excel. And please like, share, and this video. Remember, by doing so, it will allow YouTube to suggest this video to other viewers because there are other people that want to learn this stuff. So I appreciate that, and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. You have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.